what fucking time it is, man?
It's 7 o'clock on the dot. I need a crack rock on the spot.
My favorite expression in English is the one that says, never bite the hand of the one that fingers you, something like that.
They, them, energy. They, them, energy.
Vos films sont bien compris en Europe.
Non mais mettons-nous bien ça dans la tête. Moi, l'Europe n'est pas mon centre. L'Europe est une périphérie de l'Afrique. Ils sont restés plus de 100 ans chez moi, ils n'ont pas parlé ma langue, je parle leur langue. Pour moi, l'avenir ne dépend pas d'être compris par l'Europe. Je souhaiterais qu'ils me comprennent, mais ça ne fait absolument rien. Si vous prenez la carte de l'Afrique, géographiquement, vous pouvez mettre l'Europe et l'Amérique et il nous restera encore de la place. Pourquoi voulez-vous que je sois comme le tournesol qui tourne autour du soleil? Je suis moi-même le soleil.
I am offended that our children are not receiving affordable gender reassignment surgery along with hormone blockers and access to abortions. This alone is a threat to our democracy.
An admittedly blighted area directly in the path of proposed Bay Area Rapid Transit District construction. Most of the homes and businesses in this area will have to be destroyed to make room for progress, and the push of progress is not always gentle. Angry and confused, many of the residents say they can't buy new homes, but the market value prices given them for the ones they now live in. Business people face the same dilemma. What will you do now?
Well, they're storing it now.
A multi-million-dollar post office complex is being built 2 blocks from here. The city has a redevelopment program well underway for this area. When the Bay Area Rapid Transit District construction is completed, Oakland's west side will be revitalized. But for many, the transition will be a painful one.
It just shows that you people do not care about our children and that these are the same people who refuse to obey the science and get fully vaccinated. It's science, people! Science! Science, people! Science!
What if I told you that every time you consume natural flavourings, you could be eating something developed by human fetal cells? Yes, you heard that right. Did you know that some of the biggest food companies, Pepsi, Nestle and Kraft, have used a biotech company called Synomics to create flavour enhancers? But here's the disturbing part. These artificial flavours were originally tested using HEK293, a cell line derived from aborted fetal tissue. And because of legal loopholes, they don't have to tell you. Let me repeat that. Natural flavours don't necessarily mean they come from nature. They can be chemically engineered in a lab using biotech derived from human cells. Here's how it works. The food industry knows that processed food loses its flavour, so instead of using real ingredients, they bring in biotech companies to develop flavour enhancers. Synomics found that HEK293 cells, originally from fetal tissue, react to flavours like human taste buds. By testing these flavours on cells, they created additives that made processed food better, addicting millions of people worldwide. And then these chemical compounds were rebranded as natural flavours. Here's why it matters. The food industry is one giant deceptive machine. They use loopholes to keep consumers in the dark. Today, even natural flavours can contain over 100 synthetic compounds, developed using biotech processes we're not told about. It's about profit, not health.
What percentage of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease do you think Tylenol causes?
So Tylenol or
Paracetamol
in the UK, the acetaminophen, the main compound in that, actually dissolves liver tissue.
Oops.
So as that dissolves liver tissue, the liver's ability to function goes down, it gains more fat, and it causes all kinds of liver damage. In the UK, we actually have a lot of transplants, probably America as well, that are because of Tylenol overdoses. I was at actually your conference back in Dallas in June or May, and I was chatting with a lady who worked for the poison control in Denver. And she was telling me that the #1 by a factor of 3 of chemical overdoses that people have, that they're getting around Christmas time, is Tylenol. Teenagers taking too much, and Tylenol literally dissolves liver tissue. One Tylenol does as much damage to your liver as 6 pints of beer.
Wow. And if you combine the Tylenol with 6 pints of beer, what happens?
Then you've multiplied that, and you're going to have a quantum effect to where you probably cause 20 or 30 times as much damage because they're accelerating each other.
That's so important. So over the holidays, if you drink, don't take Tylenol. And I don't care if you have a headache, don't take Tylenol. It's not okay.
Absolutely. And anything high in sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup, Coca-Cola. Crazy as it sounds, Diet Coke is actually worse for fatty liver than regular Coke because of all the chemicals that are in it.
From about the age of 9 or 10 that I wanted to be a scientist. Most of my activities, like playing with model fireworks or model railways or playing complicated games, was aimed in some way at finding out how the world works.
Remember, I told you not to paint your house green. Please paint it a different color. I can't stand it. Every time, don't say hell.
They called scalping savage, but it was the British who made it law, put a price on native heads, and even paid for the scalps of children. In 1755, Lieutenant Governor Spencer Phipps issued the Spencer-Phipps Proclamation, declaring open season on the Penobscot people. This wasn't war. It was extermination for profit. British colonial authorities placed bounties on native heads, turning settlers into paid killers. The price of a native life? 50 pounds for a native man. Alive, 40 pounds for just his scalp, 25 pounds for a woman or a boy under 12, 20 pounds for a woman's scalp or a child's. Even children weren't spared. And the hypocrisy? History blames Native Americans for scalping, but it was the British who legalized it and turned it into policy. The scalps weren't just proof of death. They were trophies. Settlers paraded them through town where they were counted, displayed, and rewarded by colonial officials. Mass murder wasn't just allowed, it was incentivized. This wasn't survival. This wasn't self-defense. This was a colonial extermination campaign. And the Penobscot? They're still here, but only because they survived a world that wanted them erased for cash.
Do you believe in sin? When I say believe, I don't mean to believe in committing sin. Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin that people can commit.
People ask me, what was my aha moment? What made me change my perspective? And it's when I saw this. So a black person in the United States during the Jim Crow era faced second-class citizenship, disenfranchisement, barriers to voting, barriers to education, barriers to employment, and barriers to housing. Then we had the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act, which stated we could no longer do any of this. We could no longer discriminate based on race. So in 2023, what is the only group of people that we can legally discriminate against? We can legally relegate to second-class citizenship, create barriers to voting, barriers to education, barriers to employment, barriers to housing. If you answered convicted felon, you are absolutely correct. In 2023, a convicted felon is the only group of people that we can legally do all this to.
What are you getting out of putting your black-ass child in proximity to white people, especially at a young age? Because if we said if the goal of white supremacy is to erode the soul, what do you think's happening to your children when you subjugate them to ostracization and racism at such a young age? They're like formative years they're spent trying to assimilate with racist. Because if you think they ain't being called a nigger at school, you're out of your fucking mind. You subjected your kids to racism at such a young age when it's not necessary because you think the education is better? And is it a better education or do they just have better amenities?
It's just better amenities.
And how is the education better if the whole educational system is based off of lies and propaganda? What are you expecting? A better education? No, you just think that ICE is colder. That's what they think. Yeah. They think the closer you are to white people, the better you are. The more equal you'll be. But how the fuck you gonna be equal to people that deemed you 3/5 of a human? How? How does that work? Explain that math to me. Niggas turned you into a fraction of a person. And you standing in front of them whole. And you remove them completely from blackness. They don't have black neighbors. None of their teachers is black. Oh, you think your child at school causing trouble? No, they're being singled out. Because these people are fucking racist.
And I yelled out, niggas eat shit, which I would never say in a million years, but that's what happened.
Now, do you believe it's a coincidence that 1 in 3 black males carry this label as convicted felon, as opposed to 1 in 17 white males? If you answered yes to that question, let's take a look at what's happened since the dismantling of the Jim Crow laws. We've had a 700% increase in our prison population. We've gone from 300,000 inmates to as high as 2.3 million. Now, I do believe we're back down to about 1.8 million today. We had the law and order agenda, which was an increase in police spending and a decrease in school funding, which created the school to prison pipeline. We also had the war on drugs, which we now know was a war on people. We had the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, and we had the 1994 Crime Bill. Now, the 86 Anti-Drug Abuse Act differentiated between rock cocaine and powder cocaine, which we know predominantly impacted the black community. And the 94 Crime Bill created harsher sentences, lengthier sentences, and minimum mandatories. We also know that black people make up 53% of all exonerations, 69% of exonerations for drug crimes, and they're 7 times more likely to be wrongly convicted. So when I seen all of this, I realized that racism in this country never ended. We have a systemic issue.
Do you see how red my face is?
A little bit.
The problem is your house is painted green.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to grass. You know that because I've already told you when you moved in. Remember? Remember!
You just put them in proximity, and I've heard all these different stories about people like having to being subjected to so much racism. That's going to traumatize your child for the rest of their life. So, for the only way for them to have a good experience is to go along. So they have to remove their dignity. They have to remove their pride because you're severely outnumbered. You can't fight everybody, and the more fights you get into, the more of a problem you are. When you're already seen as a problem to begin with. Now, I understand you're making a little money. You're making a little money, and you want your child to have a better education. It's just more resources. That's really what it is. When we go to the poorer schools, they lack resources. They lack funding. Kids have a rougher at home life, so they come to school to express whatever frustration they can't express at home. But better?
No, it's not better.
I mean, this is America. Will you want them in a nice, clean classroom with a whole bunch of amenities so they could just learn the lies better? So they can learn the propaganda a little better? Because they ain't gonna have no goddamn opinion. And then they grow up and you put them around all these goddamn white people. You remove them from all the blackness, and then you expect them to have black excellence? That ain't how that work. No, it's not better. What you're saying is white people are better. In a nutshell, it's not a better education. You just think that being around more white people makes you better, and it'll make your kid better.
Man married an Osage woman, he would gain control over her head right. So you basically had white men killing their Osage wives to gain control over their financial wealth. This is the chilling connection to Ree Drummond, aka Pioneer Woman. Ree Drummond's family has historical ties to some of these head rights. Drummond's family, including Ree's husband Ladd, owns about 9% of this land, once belonging to the Osage tribe, valued at approximately $275 million. The Drummonds were involved in all kinds of questionable financial practices leading to the exploitation of the Osage Nation. They gained their wealth through stealing from the Osage. The Drummond's family acquisition of land, including parts owned by William Hill, one of the few people to be convicted of the Osage murders, and their interactions with the Osage people are central to the narrative. This land that is currently owned by the Drummonds is soaked in Osage blood. There may have been over 100 murders so that white folks could steal Osage wealth. And the Drummond family to this day still controls a portion of some of these head rights.
The lead robbers in America are white men. The largest amount of rapists are white men. The highest number of domestic abusers is white men. The highest number of arrested pedophiles is white men. The greatest number of drug dealers arrested is white men. But if you ask the average American who are the proponents of crime, there's a black face to it. They're now trying to create this narrative that the immigrants are bringing in the crime because they never want to own up to what it is that they have done. Part of our responsibility is to pull the sheets off. We had a shooting here in Georgia not long ago. A young man named Colt, 14 years old, went and shot up his high school. His father's now being charged. Can you imagine what conversation me and you would be having if Colt was black and Colt's black father gave him a gun? The television, the internet would explode on the irresponsibility of black fathers, on why it is that young black men have guns and are carrying guns. It has always shifted to make black men feel hyper-aggressive, hypersexual, and hyper-criminalized. It's part of a larger, historic, original sin of America that always criminalizes and points their fingers at black men when it's absolutely not true.
Every time I walk by your house, I sneeze. My skin is peeling.
Because
it's
of
red.
the paint?
From your color, yes. You can have it pink. You can have it purple, blue, green. No green.
I had this friend of mine, I hadn't seen him in years. We used to agree on everything. And we just ran into each other on the street recently. And a completely different person. He's on a completely different algorithm, I tell you. No, it's weird. I ran into this guy. We used to agree on everything. We started talking about the Tartarian Empire, okay? But all these beautiful buildings we see down here, they weren't built by us. They were built by a hidden civilization that we don't know about. And then the mud floods came, and we wouldn't even know about this ancient civilization if you're nodding your head here. Yeah. We wouldn't know about any of this unless Admiral Larry Bird had gone to Antarctica and went over the ice wall and talked to the reptilian overlords from the planet Nibiru. And we find out about the Tartarian, all this stuff, right? And I'm talking to my buddy, and he doesn't know about any of this shit. That's the thing. Like, the guy's a fucking idiot.
Call me dumb, yeah, but I don't understand how this works. So this is below, and there's buildings and houses, then there's a bridge. And on this bridge, there's buildings and houses on top. So are the buildings built on the bridge?
The mud flood, many say, was a deliberate attempt to wipe out Tartaria from history, hiding their advanced technology and knowledge. During the early 19th century, strange events were reported worldwide. Cities were being dug out from layers of mud and debris. Buildings were being revealed that were covered to their rooftops in mud. A global cataclysmic event buried entire civilizations, erasing them from history. But here is where it gets rather unsettling. The Tartarian Empire, an empire often depicted in old maps, was an advanced civilization that existed across Europe and Asia. They built architectural marvels, had access to advanced technology, and were able to harness energy from the atmos.
Who were the Tartarians? The official history is hiding a major world power
which existed as late as the 19th century. Tartary was a country with its own flag, its own government, and its own place on the map. Its territory covered most of the modern world we know today, yet somehow it was ever so quietly incorporated into Russia and some other countries.
What I'm saying is I don't believe the history we've been taught. Here's a good example. Have you ever heard about Lewis and Clark going across the Mississippi? In 1803, there was nothing there supposedly back in those days. Okay, so now think about that. So we're talking about like 200 years ago. There was nothing west of the Mississippi as far as the America was concerned. Now talk about when these cities were founded and became cities like we know today. And explain to me how that makes even a lick of sense. Like, so how did Chicago go from like literally like a tent city in 1840 to Chicago like we know it by 1860? You think about all the central planning that would have took. Then you go like to places like San Francisco. San Francisco like had 1,000 people in like 1840. And then there's a panoramic shot very famously that shows the whole city in 1873. And it's a full grown city. There ain't one bit of construction happening right there.
Again, all the way out to about here. All the way out to about here, probably 2 meters almost. But if I place this water barrier here and then try to drop the tube, it goes out in about 1 meter. So this doesn't absorb all of the energy, but the water does absorb even the low frequencies significantly. And if we had the higher frequencies, this would be a complete protection. What's nice about that is that if you were potentially facing a microwave attack, if you just had a couple of water bottles and a towel, you could hold it in front of your face and you'd probably protect yourself from a weaponized microwave system. And if you're thinking, well, that'll protect my face, but not the rest of me, just get a beach towel, flood it with water, hold it up in front, and you could dance away.
Dahomey. Yes. It's a village along the Suriname River, and when I got there, I found out they were telling me that no white people are allowed in there. No. Why is a white person not allowed in the village?
The man who has the, let's say, the spiritual medium, he was not anymore alive when the peace treaty was signed. So he himself didn't make peace with white folk, and everything what was his, also the spiritual things, didn't make peace with white folk. So Dahomey is a village where white folk don't allow to go because the powerful spiritual medium lies there. Okay. Every white folk who goes in, he sees them like enemy.
The spirit that they have here is a warrior spirit who fought against the European in the slavery time. And every time that the warrior spirit see white people, he get aggressive, so they want to fight. That's why they don't allow white people to come here. What will happen if a white person comes here?
Death.
He will die.
Hello?
Hey, hi, how are you today?
I'm okay. How can I help you?
You know, I couldn't sleep at all last night.
Why?
Sneezing. I have this rash. Do you see how red my face is?
He believes it's theft. Just taking land from someone is theft. No more, no less. So he believes you can't, no matter how bad the injustices were in the past, you can't fix it by grabbing.
And that is madness. How does taking my car, which you stole from you, become a theft? Mm-hmm. You steal my car, I come and take it. I find it, I take it. In Terra's mind, that is theft. I mean, that is insane. We're not stealing anything. We're taking what is rightfully ours. But I'm not taking my car and leaving you stranded. I give you a ride. This is my car, I'm taking it.
Without compensation? How are you getting a ride?
No, I'm giving you a ride. We're driving together. I won't leave you here stranded. Yes. Why should I compensate a criminal? You steal my car, you want money from me to buy it. You're committing more crime by wanting me to buy from you.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, sometimes people say, well, you mean everything that I understand will confuse me if I don't understand racism? Yes, because racism is the dominant political and religious motivating force among the people of the planet in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. That covers just about everything that any person, minute by minute, might be doing or engaged in any time of day or night, anywhere on the planet. If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, sometimes people say, well, you mean everything that I understand will confuse me if I don't understand racism? Yes, because racism is the dominant political and religious motivating force among the people of the planet in all 9 areas of activity.